Hello once again, everyone. We're visiting with Barry Ward of The Ohio State University. We've visited with Barry over the years, and one of the experts when it comes to projecting what land values, cash rents, looking at inputs, the outputs, and how they affect cash rents and land values over the years. Barry, as we end 2013, take a look at an upcoming year. What's the economy look like as how it's going to impact those cash values?
Well, there's a number of variables that we're looking at, and the key variables that have really driven land values and cash rents over the last several years have been crop profitability and interest rates. And both of those we expect to see making kind of unfriendly moves towards land values, if you will. Crop profits, we're expecting to see margins shrink dramatically and in some cases be negative for this next year for corn, soybeans, and wheat. And interest rates have inched up. So those two key variables have really, changed dramatically here in the latter part of 2013, and we expect those to be that way into 2014. So our expectation is that land values will flatten out, and we may then at some point see some of those numbers retreat, land values and cash rents. Now, when that will happen is probably what everyone really wants to know, and it's going to be tough to gauge that.
Barry, over the years when things are good and in crop production, livestock are profitable, farmers are pretty wise when it comes to putting away a little bit to salt them in cases such as you're talking about. At the same time, farmers are going to need to be a little more careful as far as how they spend their money, maybe not making some kind of a purchase this coming year, taking a look at what needs to be done and be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, one thing that illustrates that is as far as putting money away for future, our balance sheets, our farmer balance sheets are very healthy right now, especially in the crop sector. We're down to, as far as a nation, about 10.2% debt to asset ratio, which is very low compared to where we were 10 years ago. So we know that farmers are poised to weather a little bit of this storm just because they're financially healthy, but certainly they're going to be more judicious in their purchases. We have seen some of our input costs respond already to some of these lower crop prices, fertilizer prices, and it's a combination. Fertilizer prices have come down partly due to lower crop prices, but also partly due to supply expansion. In the past several years, we've seen fertilizer manufacturers be very profitable. So in that kind of environment, we've seen more expansion. So we've seen, and some of our input costs are going to be sticky, but we will see some response, and our input costs will work their way lower in response to these lower crop prices. But the interim period is where our farmers are really going to have to try to survive.
Of course, we're more dependent upon what happens globally now, I think, more than ever before. How does what's happening, say, in China, in Brazil, around the world, how does it impact land values here in Ohio?
Well, they're all direct competitors. In most cases, they're direct competitors, as we have a very open type of economy these days worldwide. And we're trading with all of these developing countries in some fashion, and sometimes it's directly with ag products. So their success and their ability to implement good policy and install new infrastructure will make them more competitive. And these high prices that we've experienced have certainly allowed those countries to maybe expand some of their available capable land. And we've certainly seen that in South America. That's the biggest, in Brazil especially. That's the one that we typically see is the one country that has the most ability to expand.
I'm seeing some things as far as, maybe not on an agricultural basis, but as far as a new continent that has a lot of potential that people are looking at investing in is Africa.
Yes.
And with adding to demand and supply demand, is that going to be a factor here in say, the Buckeye State?
Well, I think that there's got to be significant changes still occurring in the whole African continent, and every country is different over there as far as their political stability, and I think that's the place that many of those countries still have to get to before they can experience some of the progression that maybe our South American and our Eastern Asian countries have experienced, and I think many of them are working to that point. But as those countries are more politically stable, then their economies can be more stable and they can be more open to buying our goods, and we trading partners essentially. But they still have some significant hurdles in many of those countries, and I know producing crops is still a very big hurdle because of their infrastructure problems and because of their policy issues.
Okay, Barry, I've sort of taken you around the world asking you some different kinds of questions. Let's get back to Ohio and give us a range in cash rents as you look to next year, and a range in land values for those farmers that have the wherewithal to make some purchases.
Well, what we see, at least in our data that in our survey, and we're only talking Western Ohio here, we don't have enough data to really speak too thoroughly about Eastern Ohio, but this past year, if we look at average cropland in Western Ohio, that land, and that's talking about probably the majority of the land is average in our category, is right around $196 to $200 an acre. We expect to see maybe some residual follow-through on land rents in Ohio for those rents and for those parcels of land that haven't seen those increases. We're expecting to see maybe a little bit more of an increase in 2014 for those rents at the high end of the spectrum, maybe a little pullback, although most of your producers are going to be pretty reluctant to ask for a rent decrease. So those are going to be pretty sticky. Our flex leases, those are going to show some declines. So I think overall we're going to be pretty flat in terms of cash rents in Ohio. Land values, we expect, I would expect to see, and this is going to be tough to say depending on what interest rates do, but if we do see interest rates remain where they are now, our land values probably will be trading in a band of around plus or minus 2% from where they were last year. So pretty flat, I would expect. Now beyond that, our margins are probably going to dictate, and higher interest rates too, that land values are going to probably see some pullback beyond 2014. How much is the key consideration, and some are predicting a significant correction. I don't expect that. I would expect more of a minor correction of somewhere in that 5 to 10% range, but time will tell.
The Ohio State University's Barry Ward. Always admire someone that sticks their neck out a little bit like this when they prognosticate, although you do it based on facts and information that you get.
And plenty of disclaimers.
So, Barry, if folks would like to get a little bit more information, how's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, they can find me through our website, through our departmental website. It's the Department of Ag, Environmental, and Development Economics at Ohio State. A simple search will get them to our website. And then our enterprise budgets and our cropland values and cash rent survey data, that's available on our farm management page.
Very good. As we said, Barry Ward has been our guest. Barry's always a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And stay with us. Back with more right after this.